Hello everyone, this is Tactical Lich here, and today we are showcasing a Domination game of madness sent in by the Phoenix King. We are having quad Xing War Compass today. 2 astronomers on the War Compass and 2 generic War Compass. They are bringing a crap ton of bombardment spells. Celestial Lightning, Celestial Comet combined with the astronomers spell kits. With the magic amplification, the Cathay army has more than enough magic to level an entire Kislev settlement. And for the rest of the build, we have a Terracotta Sentinel in the starting army, another one in the reserve, a bunch of Jade Warriors with halberds, as well as a bunch of Celestial Dragon Gods, hoping to counteract the sled game and cavalry of the Kislev army. Leading the army, we have a single Lord Magistrate, providing those buffs to the army, and also in the reserves, triple Celestial Dragon Crossbows, and a bunch of Peasant Horsemen and Peasant Long Spears. As for the Kislev army, a really strong force of mobility, great for Domination game mode where they can perform lightning strikes and then quickly maneuver to different positions of the map. Consisting of horse archers, dervishes, a couple Tsar gods for capturing, and very good melee support, winged lancers to counteract the Cathay cavalry, heavy war sleds led by Tsarina Catherine. In the reserves, we have a single Warbear Riders, some Tsar Guards as well, a single Streltsy unit, a couple Winged Lances, and a lot of Armored Cossars. Also, a couple Cossars with Spears for additional firepower, and that's basically it. Let's see what the 4 Xing War Compass and the spell barrages they bring to the battlefield are capable of. The Kislev army deployed with the forces spread out onto the battlefield. Over here, one of the contingent of mobile forces, the Kosovo dervishes, coupled with a couple horse archers, will be moving on to objective 1, securing this objective early, and the same goes for the other side of the mobility forces. Double horse archers yet again with dervishes, and another unit of winged lancers following from behind. With such a strong mobility focused force, I really liking this build here, as the missile troops can simply maneuver around the battlefield, striking, harassing at the Cathay's army. Just like these isolated Jade Warriors here, they can easily move over some of the horse archers and go for a flanking charge and just sandwich them from both sides. And combined with a possibly heavy war sled, they can just basically pick off this Jade Warrior unit for free. But it seems that the Kislev units are just moving towards the middle, hoping to harass the major part of the Cathay army. But Cathay is not exactly vulnerable to skirmish fire today, with all these heavily armored Jade Warriors, Celestial Dragon God, 100 armor on the Terracotta Sentinel, and of course we have the quad Xing War Compass, 80 armor, and also being a single entity, they are not that vulnerable to missile fire either. They will need something like the heavy war sleds and the Streltsies to pepper down all these heavily armored single entities. Now, the Streltsies, being a rather slow infantry unit, are yet to get to the battlefield, and instead the heavy war sleds will be the one firing into some of these Jade Warriors with halberds, chipping away some HP. But with such a dominant force of Cathay infantry and, well, Xing War Compass, war machines, the Cathay army has secured this objective in the middle, while the other Jade Warriors will be pushing over to objective 3 and receiving some harassing fire from the horse archers. Now at the back of the battlefield, at the deployment zone, we have already the first batch of reinforcements summoned by Phoenix King, the Cathay player, with Celestial Dragon Crossbowmen pushing up ahead, peppering down the horse archers. They're a great missile unit who can hold their own in melee with 29 missile strength. Most of them armor piercing. They should do some great damage if they can start firing into the fray, and horse archers, not being the greatest melee combatant, will have some trouble focusing down the Celestial Dragon Crossbows, as they not only have shields to block off their arrow fire, but also 95 armor, 32 defense, and 26 melee attack. They can most certainly fend off charges from low tier cavalry like the dervishes. So, like dervishes and horse archers, will not be able to run down this Cathay backline. While in the middle, we have the Lord Magistrate of the Cathay army being slowly whittled down by Death Frost. It is not exactly the best damaging spells, but with multiple casts from the Ice Queen, the damage does add up and he will be finished off, sniping off the Lord early and doing a heavy blow to the Cathay leadership. Still, with Lord Magistrate being such a cheap lord, even if he gets routed, he'll probably be able to be summoned back in onto the Domination battlefield. While the rest of the army here, the Jade Warriors are being peppered down by missile fire from the Horse Archers as well as some of the Streltsies. At the back, armored Cossacks are pushing in, hoping to push into the objective 2 and contest this secured objective for the Cathay. While at the high ground, the Kosovo dervishes are slowly capturing objective 1, and over here, an engagement has begun as some of the dervishes charges into the ranks of the Jade Warriors, but now they are not exactly wanting to engage into this prolonged melee with the anti-large and heavier armor, better melee stats and whatnot. They will be pulling off while the Zargots will be replacing them to capture this objective, slowly giving the control of this objective to the hands of Kislev. Now at the back, we have a unit of armored Cossacks being engaged by a whole lot of units, a bunch of Jade Warriors with halberds, Terracotta Sentinels crushing in, Streltsies being shot down by all the Dragon crossbows, Celestial Dragon God repelling some of these Horse Archers. Some of these Horse Archers, a bit of a slack in micro here, being caught by Celestial Dragon crossbows in terms of melee. And Dervishes pushing into the middle, but the Kislev infantry are buckling with all these high weapon strength units. 160 weapon strength on the Xing War Compass, to 300 weapon strength on the Astronomer. They're not the best melee unit, but still damage is damage, and 300 weapon strength is more than enough to take down a couple Cossacks in a single hit, and the Kislev infantry are quickly terrified. Now at the back, the heavy war sleds are heavily needed in the engagement here, as the Celestial Dragon crossbows are rather exposed, and an armor-piercing anti-infantry unit would certainly wreck them, but this is definitely a mistake for the Kislev player. Now, on the other side, there are some Kosovite dervishes charges into the backs of the Celestial Dragon Guards. Not exactly the greatest call, as the Celestial Dragon Guards can easily repel them. They should be focusing down these Dragon crossbows instead. But still, crossbows are now silenced by some of the winged lances, although there are some peasant horsemen countercharging, pushing off this backline offensive from the Kislev forces. While at the back here, there is a unit of Warbear Riders being summoned to the fray, while the Cossacks with spears are slowly focusing down the units in the middle. More spells coming in from the skies, a comet dropping onto the ranks, but it seems that they did more friendly fire on the Celestial Dragon Gods than the Tsar Gods, who are now successfully pushing off the friendly fired Dragon Gods. At the back, some armored Cossacks are now shooting in using their non-armor piercing missiles, hoping to whittle down some of these Astronomer, Xing War Compass, alongside with some fire support of the War Sleds. A second comet dropping in finally. This comet from one of the War Compass destroys these Star Guards, while the Astronomers here are just tanking, absorbing all the arrow fire from the Cossack units. And while they will be smashing apart the Star Guards with their rather pathetic weapon strength for single entities. Nonetheless, the Cathay forces seems to be gaining an upper hand here, as most of the infantry support of the Kislev forces are gone. They're pushed back. The Cossacks here are slowly firing into the fray, whittling down some of these Xing War Compass, but that is far from enough. Luckily for the Kislev forces, the Zargots has gained an upper hand, fighting off all these Jade Warriors with halberds, securing objective 3, a key piece for Kislev to win the game in terms of victory tickets. And in the high ground, the Tsar Guards supporting the Warbear Riders are slowly grinding down the Terracotta Sentinels, but with the Celestial Dragon Gods rushing in. These Tsar Guards will have a hard time holding the line, as they are the same tier of elite infantry, and the armor-piercing halberds can do decent damage, especially if they can get a rear charge onto the Tsar Guards, while the Warbear Riders would be occupied by the Terracotta Sentinels, unable to bring themselves over for a rear charge, hammering into the Celestial Dragon Gods. Now back to the middle, the heavy war sleds most certainly has seen better days. They are focused down by the armor-piercing missiles from the Celestial Dragon crossbows, quickly shot to pieces as they're tangled upon the anti-large armor-piercing Celestial Dragon Gods. While the quad Xing War Compass seems to be unopposed, winning all the engagements and pushing up ahead, eating all the firepower from the Corsairs, from the armored Corsairs as well, even Streltsies mixing into the fray, shooting them down, but they are just not going down. With almost 5k HP on these units, they can absorb quite a bit of beating, to say the least, and also not having the best hitbox. Yep, they will be holding for now, at least. While the dragon crossbows will be pushing in with a little bit more range than the Streltsies, they should be able to do some great damage to shut up all the Streltsy units and even the Corsairs, as they have 160 range, and the bow and arrows on these Corsairs only a pathetic 140 on the Streltsies as well. So the Kislev player needs to find a way to shut these crossbows down, and he needs to find them quick. Most ideally, mobility. The ice sheets dropped onto the fray, but it seems that they're not doing that much effect, as they are not doing any damage, merely slowing down the already slow infantry. Now the Kislev player has frantically mustered some horse archers and thrown them to the fray, but they are eating a whole volley of celestial dragon crossbow fire, and they are quickly shot up, already activating the by our blood unbreakable effect before they can even engage into melee. And remember, these are full ammo horse archers, so as they die, there is a whole bunch of ammo going down with them, a massive waste of resources. If anything, they probably should be circling around over here, shoot up all these Celestial Dragon Guard, and then surround the Xing War Compass in melee. That probably would have been a better use of these skirmish cavalry than rushing straight into the death trap among the firing zone of the Celestial Dragon Gods. And in the middle, Cathay being point blank shot up by all these Celestial Dragon crossbows. The leader of the Ice Court, the Tsarina, is dead, and with Cathay perished among a barrage of crossbow bolts. The Kislev forces are losing steam, as the Cathay army has occupied this second objective for a long time, while on this first objective, the Kislev forces are also being pushed back by a combination of Celestial Dragon Guard, a dead Terracotta Sentinel, and a bunch of mobility, the Peasant Horsemen, as well as the formidable Xing War Compass pushing into combat using their decent weapon strength. Well, it's not quite decent, but enough to just basically surround and pile onto all these Warbear Riders. There are some horse archers rushing in, but they are tangled up by these Celestial Dragon Gods and will be suffering massive losses in melee. At the same time, Cathay has been switching their army focus from quality heavy halberds to peasant spear chaff. They're cheap, but they are really effective in this late game scenario, converging onto different capture points using their numbers advantage to occupy these capture points. While the Kislev forces barely holding on to the third objective, everything else are basically dominated by the Cathay forces. In the middle, all the infantry from the Kislev are cleared up by a combination of crossbow fire, sentinel melee attacks, and also peasant long spears occupying the second objective. As for the Kislev counter-attack, there are some battered Corsairs pushing in, supported by the firepower of the Streltsies. They need to push in the war sleds and basically run down all these dragon crossbows, but it seems that they are being forgotten right now by the Kislev player, as they are now busy microing units all over the battlefield, especially these horse archers now being tangled up, tied down by all the peasant long spears and Celestial Dragon Gods. They have lost an entire unit before they can use up most of their ammo. Warbear Riders, a great unit, focus down the Sentinels, getting massive value with only one summon, but still, there are just way too many bodies from the Cathay here. Unable to carry this engagement and overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of peasants, they will be swiftly routed. Now back to the middle, some dervishes got thrown into the fray, hoping to contest this area, but the peasant long spears are tying them down. The dervishes simply are too weak to clear up so many infantry, as the sentinel just basically blending up all these Kosovo dervishes. Dragon crossbows, they will be pushing ahead as they still have quite a few unit models left. 65 unit models, almost 60% HP. They can hold their own in melee and definitely finish up the Streltsies if they engage into melee. Though the Cathay backline right now is slightly stuffed up. The heavy war sleds, a second time being summoned, they will be rolling through all the Celestial Dragon crossbows, doing massive damage, especially now that chariots are fixed and war sleds are now more powerful than ever. But with double sentinel piling on top of them, the mass pinning them down, They will struggle to push through all these heavy units of the Cathay army. They are buying time for the Streltsies to shoot up the Sentinels for sure, but with the Sentinels still being so healthy, this is far from enough, as the Heavy Warriors lads already losing one model will be forced to pull back into the cover of the ice sheets, hoping to slow down the Cathay forces. But the Cathay forces are not really focusing on the Streltsy units. Tsarina being caught in once again, but the peasant horsemen now broken through this defense on the Kislev side will be flanking around, sandwiching all the Streltsies, and the battered units of Cossacks will not be able to hold down so many peasant long spears. But it seems that the Cathay player, Phoenix King here, is just focusing on consolidating this capture, lining up the long spears to prevent any flanking maneuvers, as the rest of the Cathay forces are now slowly but surely finishing off the remaining Kislev forces. There are some Kosovoite dervishes charging into the backs of some of the Jade Warriors, but they will not be enough despite having a great surround, as the heavy armor and decent leadership of the Jade Warriors will be able to hold back all these light cavalry. And also there's a single unit of Celestial Dragon crossbows acting as some kind of meat shield, absorbing the charges of all these dervishes. Tsarina dropping her ability, but it seems that it was a miss, as Phoenix King here noticing the spell, dodging with the Jade Warriors, and now maneuvering around. They are striving to pin down all these Kosovoite dervishes and horse archers. Kislev trying to pin them down with a suicide charge from the dervishes, but that is not going to matter. Cathay still have tight control on two objectives, and time is running out for Kislev. Realizing that any further struggle is basically futile, the Kislev player decided to surrender before victory tickets hit 5,000. Now let's quickly wrap up the game with a post-battle analysis. Big thanks to Phoenix King for sending in this replay. Totally did not expect a quad Xing War Compass build coming to play. You can see that the astronomers didn't really do too much damage, but the other Xing War Compass getting over 1k value each did pretty decent, with all those comets and lightning bolts blasting away some of the heavy infantry of the Kislev forces. As for the infantry wise, the Jade Warriors, some of them did pretty well, some of them did not quite earn back their own value. Instead, the heavy lifting are all done by the Celestial Dragon Gods, who are mostly earning back their value, and of course the Celestial Dragon crossbows, over 3k value damage, over 2k value damage, almost 3k value damage as well. They are just absolutely solid, with all those armor-piercing fire focusing down the heavy war sleds and shooting up some of the winged lances and heavy infantry, as well as the Streltsy unit of the Kislev forces, especially with their better range than the Kislev Cossacks and Streltsies, and combined with their melee strength that can repel all kinds of light cavalry, the horse archers and dervishes that their opponent is so heavily reliant on. The dragon crossbows most certainly did an amazing job here, hard carrying Grand Cathay to victory. And of course there is also the Terracotta Sentinel getting almost 1.5k damage, doing pretty decent overall, while the peasants, well, they are basically peasants, not really much to say, although these peasant horses being summoned multiple times earn back quite a bit of value, counteracting enemy mobility like the horse archers and the winged lances. As for the Kislev forces, Tsarina got some value from the spells, but not really doing much here, as she is not exactly the best melee combatant. And the heavy war slats getting quite some value with all those armor-piercing shots, despite not getting a lot of favorable melee engagements. As for the infantry, the Targots got bombarded by the Xing War Compass, so not really much to say about them, while the winged lances, the dervishes, and the horse archers got hit pretty hard by the lack of proper micro, being stuck on a bunch of Celestial Dragon crossbows as well as the Celestial Dragon Guard. These horses simply got dragged down in melee by the anti-large infantry of the Cathay forces. While the other reserved units, the Cossacks, didn't really do too well here due to all kinds of armor-piercing damage from the dragon crossbows, the sentinels, and of course sometimes the spell bombardments. And on top of that, fighting against Celestial Dragon Guard and armor-piercing elite infantry, well, the armored Cossacks will not be able to get any advantage in melee fights either. Warbear Riders managed to do a lot of heavy lifting against the Terracotta Sentinels, but unfortunately getting swarmed by anti-large peasants. It was not the greatest engagement for them, being overwhelmed, broken by the numbers of the peasant bodies. While the Cossacks with spears, they're just cheap firepower, but not exactly having the best units to shoot at today, with all the shielded Celestial Dragon Gods and crossbows, and then the armored Xing War Compass and Jade Warriors. Their damage was very limited. You might remember that they have been shooting at the Xing War Compass and the Astronomancer for quite a while, but unfortunately just not doing enough damage due to the high armor and low profile on these war machines. As for the Streltsies, they still managed to get a lot of damage done by shooting at the Terracotta Sentinel and some of the armored units of the Cathay army, but unfortunately, the Celestial Dragon Guard simply outranged them. So despite the impressive performance with the damage value, they were not able to win the game. And yeah, that's basically it for today's battle. The Xing War Compass here, absolutely surprising me in terms of their tankiness, probably because they were just a load of single entities stacked on top of each other, holding the line by the sheer weight of powerful single entities. Not in terms of killing power, but simply in terms of HP sponge and holding power. Absorbing the hits, buying time for the rest of the Cathay army, including the Dragon Gods, the Terracotta Sentinels, and of course the Dragon Crossbows to eliminate the opposing forces. Sometimes they also aided the engagement in terms of bombardment spells, but they also have the risk of landing it in friendlies, doing friendly damage, routing one of the Celestial Dragon Gods early. But other than that, I would say their performance in this game was pretty solid overall. Probably one of the more neglected units on the Cathay roster, but still, there is great potential, especially against infantry-centric builds, where their bombardment spells are really useful. Also, they support the army in terms of buffing that spell damage, the spell intensity, so it can be rather useful in certain situations. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more Total Warhammer multiplayer videos, remember to hit the like and subscribe and get notified every time I upload a new video. And if you want to showcase any battle replays, feel free to join my Discord and send me the replay file, or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.